Welcome to Live, Love, Engage, the podcast where we share practical advice from a spiritual perspective on how to create a life and business with more impact, influence, and income. I am your host, Gloria Grace Rand, the insightful copywriter and founder of the L.O.V.E method. My mission is to help you stop doubting yourself so you can live fully, love deeply, and engage authentically. There we go. Hey, hello. Namaste, and welcome to another edition of Live, Love, Engage, coming to you live on Facebook today and YouTube. Thought I'd try it out. So we'll see how that goes. And I am delighted to have a guest with us for this edition of Live, Love, Engage. And his name is Don Schmincke. And I'm going to tell you all about him in a minute. But first, I just want to officially welcome you to Live, Love, Engage, Don.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, delighted to have you. This is a gentleman who has a wonderful background with expertise in leadership, which is one of the reasons why I wanted him on the show today. So he's an award-winning speaker, a researcher, author of the best-selling book, The Code of the Executive. He's also the founder of the SAGA Leadership Institute and has trained over 15,000 CEOs in his career. His scientific methods make him the thought leader in applying genetics, evolution, and anthropology to strategic growth. And he has his latest course is called How to Slay Dragons, which talks about the terrifying problems that are stopping us from truly achieving success and happiness. And one other thing I didn't mention is that not only does he have all of those credentials, he was an MIT planetary physicist. And so I love that. I think that's totally fascinating because I'm a space geek, I guess. So how did you end up going from that type of a background to training CEOs?
It was a circuitous route. I started off being fascinated by planetary formations and all that. So I started with the closest planet to us, which is, of course, the one we're standing on. I was already here. I thought, what the heck, let's start studying this one. And then I noticed humans, and they became more fascinating too. They were so nonlinear and irrational. And I thought, wow, let's study these humans. And they became my favorite species. And so I left MIT and I went to Hopkins. I was teaching there. And I ran into a bunch of CEOs and executives in the MBA program. And I started hearing about these problems they were having. And I was getting more fascinated with how humans group together. And so I started looking at that. And then I found out these amazing high-level failure rates in popular management theory. And there's millions of articles now published on this if you go to any Google Scholar level search. So I started, they asked me if this could be a biological pattern. In other words, if what we're seeing in these failure rates is something that we're missing as a species in terms of how does it work? Because obviously it has worked. We're still here. We're still surviving. So that's what happened. I took on and got a lot of support. I mean, had a lot of access to anthropological and medical research at Hopkins, but also Oxford University gave me permission to use an ancient manuscript that was used to train managers a long time ago, about 700 years ago. So I used that manuscript and published The Code of the Executive. That was back in the 90s. And it just took off. And next thing I know, I was speaking and sharing this research. And then later on, I was able to take some of the samurai techniques that were very powerful and validate them with modern medical science and our evolution. So it just built from there. And now what I do is I help CEOs and business owners grow their companies faster and more effectively and have more powerful cultures and purpose, but what I'm using isn't like some fashion trend theory. I'm using elements of our biology.
So tell me a little bit more about the samurai. So how did that factor in? What is it about a samurai that is helpful for leaders?
I it was an accidental thing. I was doing an expedition in a lost civilization in the Himalayas at the time, and after about a month, we haven't seen electricity or water for a long time, and I was playing this Tibetan fortune telling game. Somebody had bought this thing in from Tibet because I was below China and above India. We were next to Tibet, so part of the game was to use a problem that you had in your life, and I had been running into a problem with my agent and getting this book published on tribal phenomena. Now, this was years before any tribe books came out, which are now bestsellers. And we're having a problem. But the thing that the game told me, the result of this fortune telling game was I had to give it up. I couldn't move on. And came back to the States, called my agent and said, this is going to work out. And then within a matter of weeks, I stumbled onto this ancient manuscript. And what I noticed is it was just powerful because here was an organization that survived, until the technology of the gun repelled the major forces of the world that tried to attack this country. And their areas of discipline and philosophy were so effective. I mean, we still use them in their movies today. I mean, you see television shows and movies, and you still see these samurai characters. If you watch Star Trek or Star Wars or any of these robot shows, there's usually a samurai character there. So I think what was fascinating to me is they taught more about how to achieve bravery and honor. And those are the things missing in most business training today. You don't see a lot of courses in companies. You don't see a lot of entrepreneurial training programs. You don't see a lot of, even areas of coaching where bravery and honor become a center point. But when we looked at high performance organizations, and we were able to test this because, we wanted to get companies to grow 2 or 3 times their size, or in some cases 10 times their size. And that's what we've done. But we were using these techniques so we could see that they had impact. They could grow sales of a company dramatically faster than anything they had been doing. But I think a lot of it had to do with this essential base of bravery and honor.
Wow. So can you give an example of, let's say, especially for an entrepreneur, how can they be brave? I guess how would that show up in their business? What would be an example of that?
Well, most entrepreneurs, if they have the profile of an entrepreneur, is generally the ability to take risk. And it's kind of a rare ability. In fact, we're doing some research now on the evolution of why do some people have a certain capacity for risk and others don't. So if you don't have that capacity, it's really, really tough. But entrepreneurs, I think, have to be brave every day. I mean, you're risking your life in a new concept. You might have your house mortgaged out to help fund something, or you may be taking other people's money and to be accountable for. And you're launching ideas into action, and there's no guarantee they're going to work. And so it's not a journey for the weak. And most entrepreneurs fail a lot. I mean, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I can't tell you. I've stopped counting the number of failures that I've had. And I think it's, we were working with Black Hawk Down, and Matt Eversman was the main character. And I don't know if you saw the movie or read the book, but it was probably one of the most classic epic tales of a planning failure in modern history. Yeah. And one of the things that came out of that is when Matt said, the enemy always has a vote on your plan. And that is so true. It's like plans don't always work. And so you have to approach life as I have a plan, but I have to accept it's going to fail. And I remember that esteemed leadership genius, Mike Tyson, who said it best. I think you said something like, "You always have a plan until you get punched in the mouth or hit in the mouth, and then all of a sudden you realize your plan is gone." And I think that's it. Entrepreneurs have to be brave enough to be willing to be punched in the mouth a lot
Hmm.
and do reset. And what did you learn? And was it Mandela, or I'm trying to think who? No. Oh God, I love these quotes, but I forgot who said this. But it might have been one of the basketball stars. It's, I never lose. I always learn.
Hmm.
And I think that's what keeps entrepreneurs being brave enough to keep going into battle. And hey, if you're going to lose, you're going to learn a lot from it, and then pick yourself up and move on. But it's a rare breed, and
Mhm.
I think as people evolve in leadership in their companies, even if you're not an entrepreneur, each level requires a certain demand on your decisiveness and your actions, which have higher levels of risk,
Hmm.
because you're doing something that's farther out into the future. The result, being. I mean, it's one thing to say, well, I'm going to come in and I'm going to nail this thing together, and there it is, I'm done. It's another thing to say, well, we're taking on this new project or this new market. We'll know in 3 years if it works. That's harder to guarantee.
Absolutely. Now you mentioned that you've made some mistakes, just I'm sure one or two in your career. What were maybe one of the like biggest lessons you've learned in your entrepreneurial career?
I think, oh geez, which one do I pick? I think some of it was hiring teams to do things that I trusted that they could do, but they couldn't. And I've actually made that mistake many, many times. And I'm a slow learner, so I've gotten more to the point to where I'm only using people that have demonstrated or are actively performing in the areas where they need to perform. So I think people, and for entrepreneurs, I think this is really critical because you can't do it all yourself. You have to bring people on. And originally, as an entrepreneur, I used to trust people. If they said they could do it or they were great, I believe they were great. And then, if you're 6 months or a year, you got to fire them because they couldn't do anything. I've learned that, maybe they did believe they were great, but their performance, I should have looked at, are you doing it now and how well? Because if you're
Mhm.
not doing it now, don't tell me a story and have a note from your mother that you're a good boy or girl. And
Right.
because I don't need that. And entrepreneurs, it's risky already. So you have to limit the risks that you take. And I think my mistakes were I had been through several teams that I had to fire. And
Hmm.
each time, they had collapsed my company. So that was, those were the notable
Yeah.
problems.
A little painful mistakes, but if you can learn from it, I know I very first time that I hired a virtual assistant, it did not work out well, but it really was on me. It really was not her fault.
Yeah.
I did not set expectations at the beginning of how often I wanted to hear from her. I didn't really set up good systems for her to follow, and so the next time around when I hired someone, things worked out a lot better because I was better
Yeah.
prepared. Uh,
Yeah. Good.
you also mentioned one of the traits of the samurai was honor. So how does a leader? I mean, I have an idea, but what would be some ways that a leader can uh, demonstrate that in an organization?
I think by decisions that represent the culture that you want to present to the world,
Mm.
um, because people kind of see through some things. In fact, like for instance, when years ago when Tylenol had that breakout of tainted product because somebody was sabotaging. I mean, they totally pulled products off, lost a lot of money, but they were out to protect the consumer, and that made a big statement. There were times, I mean, there's stories that littered through business literature that I think people should resurrect or hold dear, because it's times when CEOs just took something that was going to cost money, put the company at risk, but it was the right thing to do.
Mm.
I think it was Alcoa's CEO that went for worker safety, even though that was like crazy at the time that he would put profit and risk the company. But it was that turned it around. I had a dear CEO friend of mine, Bill Herdrick, who actually was running a plastics manufacturing business, and there were several employees had just suspiciously died from this respiratory illness, and he just shut the company down immediately so they could figure it out. And having to do with something in the air conditioning vendor, the system the vendor had put in. Recently, Southwest Airlines, we were, through this whole COVID thing, everybody's short staffed. This is going on, that going on, and they literally cut flights. And the announcement it was like, wow, the CEO said, we forgot about you, the employee, and you've been pushing yourself heavily. And he basically acknowledged that, and he said, we're cutting out this many flights because you deserve to have a reasonable workload and schedule. And I thought that was really impressive. You see, so if you look around, you'll see leaders making decisions that are honorable, even though it may not be the easy choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love Southwest Airlines. They're my favorite airline. I think they do at least appear from the outside that they attempt to put their employees, if not, well, I'd say, yeah, even first above shareholders. And I know because there's been a lot of controversy, I think, over the last few years about, companies, who do we, who are we serving? Are we supposed to be serving just the shareholders, or are we supposed to be serving the larger, greater good, as well as our employees? So it's
well, there's a lot of that's changing now, and I think it's interesting. A lot of investment groups and there's a lot of movement on evaluating companies at their level of contribution to the planet. It's sort of like people and the planet as well as profits. And I'm not a finance advisor, but I've heard people tell me that a lot of those companies do better, than the rest. I mean, they have higher levels of loyalty. They have not only with customers, but employees and investors. So I think with the communication capacity we have now to learn about things what companies do, right, or if they're trying to cut corners and they get exposed, companies are, I think stockholders are expecting that the asset be protected that way more than maybe ever.
Awesome. Let's go back a little bit to, talking about your work in particular that you do. What is your favorite thing about, working with CEOs and training them? What really, brings you the most joy during the day?
Teaching, really. I mean, I'm just a researcher and a teacher, and I love doing it. It's my thing. I'm just a chronic learner and teacher. And then, and form of teaching is not the CEO area became very challenging because, you have a group of people that have seen everything. They've heard all the speakers, they've read all the books, and they've been through the reality of life in terms of growing their businesses. So when you're working with them or presenting something, it better be right. It better be good. It better be validated, and it better be fresh, not just a regurgitation of something in leadership that somebody wrote 10 years ago. So that became a nice challenge for me as a professor and as a teacher, because it challenged me to really get good and the research and make sure that when I was going to be saying something, it had value and it could be tested, and I would have case studies and I could apply it in the field. And now I'm, because of COVID, it really forced me to look at a different form of teaching. So now I'm getting really excited about, instead of working with, just hundreds in a group, going out to thousands. So I've taken a lot of the research and put it down for like the masses to access. So when I started becoming Samurai, I made that an online film, online course. And the How to Slay Dragons piece that we're just getting ready to launch now is really looking at what are those problems we have in life that are just horrendous and lingering, and we tried all the normal problem solving solutions, and they're still there. And it could be career-based, or something with the kids, or the marriage, or being an entrepreneur and struggling through that development, or maybe just trying to be a good salesperson. And these problems stop us from growing. And I call these dragon problems. So I'm talking a lot more about dragon problems, these fierce fire breathing things that could just burn us alive, and we can't, they won't go away. So we started, and I took some of the samurai research, and I started this How to Slay Dragons course on looking at, what's stopping us. And usually it's some fear that's driven by a dragon. And the dragon's attached to something. And what it is, we keep forgetting that we have to detach, in other words, slay the dragon that's stopping us. And so we categorize a number of fear dragons, and we have a whole course on it. So I love it because it's allowing me to teach across much more wider boundaries than showing up in a CEO group and just dealing with that, which I still do. But COVID forced me to, I took this cigar room, and it's now a studio. I guess you can kind of see I got lights and green screens over here and all that. So it forced me to learn how to be a film producer, and how to edit and special effects and how to script. And so I just think COVID provided me, in one case, it was one of those failures you asked about earlier. What failed was like, I can't get on a plane. That's what failed. But forced me into a studio mode, and now I am spending a lot of time filming and releasing these products. So it's that's what I enjoy.
Good. Well, can you give us an example of, maybe give us a little tease of the course, How to Slay Dragons? So what's sort of maybe the first step that someone would take in, I guess it's maybe beyond even identifying a problem, but then actually learning how to slay it?
Well, the first part is really, and it's great because you mentioned this because we're starting to, like, we just put a post up on Facebook, and I've got a great social media person. I'm totally incompetent when it comes to, who needs this? How do we get it to them? So we're starting to publish some white papers on things like, right now, career. It was a great example. The New York Times published that the mass exodus, what do they call it? The resignation explosion that has occurred is affecting the world. And more people have resigned or quit than I think ever in history. And so I started looking at this data, and I thought, wow, there's a lot of people reassessing their lives. And so this article came out, but then there was a lot of stuff from the Gallup poll and the World Health Organization, people burning out. So I wrote a paper on it that just came out yesterday, actually, to look at, is your career dying, or is it breaking, or is stress of all this we're going through making you or breaking you? And I think that's a question that we haven't really had to ask, and now's the time, because stress can be good. I talk about all those entrepreneur examples, the failures you learn from. That stress is good and it keeps you going. But there's times where it's just like, whoa, it's like burnout. It's like battle weary. It's like, what do I do? So looking at dragon problems in that context was perfect, because it's like, well, what are those chronic problems in your job? Not the normal stuff that we all deal with day in and day out, but the things that have been lingering. Like, do you feel like your career stopped? Or do you feel like everything you've tried is just, you're not getting the recognition, or you're not able to demonstrate the leadership capabilities that you do have, or you're just being miserable and you don't know why. So we actually put this quiz out on testing, is stress making or breaking you? And it's like 5 questions, or no, wait a minute, I upgraded it. So it's like 10 questions, and it comes out with, hey, you're doing great, keep using it. And on the other side, hey, stop, something's broken, it's too long. And I think so the point is, first we got to identify what that problem is. We don't want to be distracted, but there's usually something stopping us. If we're not happy and fulfilled in our career or our work, that's a large part of our life that's being wasted. But once we have that, then it's easier to move into, well, what are we afraid of?
Mm.
Like what would we do if we didn't have that fear? What decisions would we make? What actions would we take? And so that helps us get deeper into, metaphorically, okay, what's that dragon? Because you got to slay that dragon. Because until you do that, you're going to stay stopped.
Mm. Yeah.
And it's interesting, with the dragon thing came out unexpectedly. One of my coaches is Mark Levy, and he helped Coach Simon Sinek on the Start With Why thing, and a lot of other
Mm.
people successfully. And I've been using him. It was in my samurai research where it was like, that's about dragons. I was like, what? And so that's where it came up. But metaphorically, it's perfect because throughout history, for like the ages, it's the one symbol that we've carried with us as humans. So I thought, wow, that's, let's do that. So he's been helping me, craft this whole program. But yeah, I think we need to identify what are our real dragon problems in life, because sometimes they may be invisible to us. Maybe they're lingering, but we kind of feel it, or we smell it, or we taste it, like something's stopping me. And then once we get it, how do we, what's that dragon and how do we slay it? And that's the whole point of the program. And it's using techniques that have been used for hundreds of years. And we use today in corporations, because we've actually implemented this with executive teams and cultures. But once we can detach from whatever it is that's causing that, we have freedom. And, it can be scary slaying a dragon, but the freedom on the other side, once we don't have that attachment. I mean, I've had people come up to me, like I've done these in live seminars, and say, "Why, like a year ago, I heard you and it changed my life."
Mm.
Either it was an issue with a relationship they were in or a job they were in. And I was like, wow, really? So when I got quarantined in the studio, I thought, well, that's what we're going to start doing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Get that technique out.
Very good. Well, and that sort of leads into my next question. Is I was curious to know, what impact do you like to have on planet Earth during your lifetime?
I would like to have some small dent in civilization before I go. You know what I mean? I would like to enhance or evolve civilization as much as I can, either with these concepts that I'm researching or discovering or carrying on from people centuries before me,
Mm.
and reawakening them so that we can improve our civilization a bit more than we have. And because if we can't, it's the stakes are very high.
Yeah, that's for sure. Absolutely. And I should have asked you this before, but just when you're just mentioning that, so what do you do? And this may be, it might be the same. You like them both, but if you had if you had your preference, would you rather be, just a researcher, or do you like being able to at least use the research and then to be able to apply it as well?
I like. I think I like teaching as the main focus, but to
Mm.
teach, you have to know what you're teaching. And
True.
for me, I love discovery. I mean, that's what has me going into remote regions in Africa or Asia or into these extreme environments, and sometimes dangerous environments, because I want to study how things evolve or collapse.
Mm.
When I snuck into the Soviet bloc during its collapse, it was dangerous, but God, I learned so much. And
Mm.
and just falling in love with the people and seeing common struggle, but also seeing, the progress we can make together. I'll always do that. And I kind of miss it because during COVID, of course, everything shut down. So for
Yeah.
a couple of years, I've been stuck in the studio, but I'm ready to get out there again. And I don't know what I'm going to learn. I just, I get on a plane and I pack my gear and I just go somewhere, and always I stumble into something,
Mm.
just listening to people and, hearing about a tribe somewhere in the mountains, and like, great, who can get me there? And just, going there and coming out educated, and then I can come back, and not everything is useful. I mean, some of it's humorous, some of it is just for my own edification, but some of it can be applied to teach. And that's really what's important. If humans can, if I can somehow contribute to someone having a better career or make a difference in the world or improve their relationships. Wow. I think for a teacher, that's what we live for.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, if someone listening to this today or watching would like to know more maybe about your course, maybe they would love to, I know it hasn't officially launched yet, but maybe they want to be able to get on the waiting list or something.
Sure.
What is the best way for people to be able to contact you?
Well, on Facebook, we have the How to Slay Dragons group, so you can join that, and I'm there, and we're starting to ramp that up. The website is SAGA Leadership, SAGA, which we stole from the Vikings, another area of research, sagaleadership.com. And that's where I have a lot of corporate stuff, but I'm going to be evolving that site to bring a lot of this other stuff into it. And, I'm out there on the web. If you search my name, I'm doing, who knows, I'm afraid to look what's out there, but maybe I shouldn't tell you to do that. But yeah, so that's the main website. And if you have any specific need, you can reach out to me directly. Don at sagaleadership.com, really.
All right. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be with us. I really appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me.
And yeah, I wish you all the best and continued good work in the world at bringing about change and slaying those dragons.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank all of you as well for watching. And if you're listening on the replay on your favorite podcast platform, I appreciate that. And if you have been enjoying this, hope you'll leave us a review or comment below on Facebook or on YouTube. And we'll definitely read those comments. So I appreciate it. And until next time, as always, I encourage you to go out and live fully, love deeply, and engage authentically.